Hey guys, welcome back to the Guardian Show. I'm Hope Knight, and today I'm joined here with
Levi Carlson.
and in today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about conflict resolution and how we're supposed to handle conflict in the way that God wants us to handle it. This is a big deal in society because we should be living to love others. And how do we love others? We have to solve conflict with others, obviously. So I'm just going to ask Levi a few questions. He's going to give me his wisdom and his insight on this conflict issue that we are facing today. So, Levi, how do people like today tend to handle conflict like in the world? If they're not seeking like a godly perspective, how do they usually handle conflict?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Hope.
Thanks.
I would say the way I've seen like my friends and stuff handle conflict, and even me, and I'm not excused from it, but I would say like at least posting it or going to some other source other than like actually going to the person and actually resolving it. They just kind of like hide away from that because they don't want to like endure like the frustrations or the arguments that'll come about from it. But obviously we need communication with one another, and they just go to other people for it.
Yeah. So what do you mean by posting it?
Posting it, I would say like any social media, they're like, oh, I'm like, they won't specifically address like their name, but like they'll just like say what they'll just get it off their chest kind of thing, and just I mean
passive aggressively like say
yes,
like hint to who the person is, but not actually like
or they'll
say.
just talk to their friend like in person.
So it's like a lot of gossip.
Yes.
About it.
Yeah, I'd say that's the biggest thing is gossip on it.
Yeah, I'd say that too. So you're saying that people usually don't actually go to the person.
Yeah,
they usually go to
do
someone
everything
else
but that.
Yeah, they go to someone else and like complain about it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that is probably the most thing that people do. I think people also handle it like, I mean, they might get angry. Like if they are like confrontational people, they might go to the person, but not in like a loving way. They'll go to them in like an angry way and be like, why would you do this? Like not trying to like hear the other person's side, just trying to like get their own side and trying to like win. Like it's like they're trying to win and have the other person to say, oh yeah, I was wrong in this situation. When sometimes there is a side that is pretty wrong, but there's also that time where it's just like kind of a misunderstanding, and that's usually what happens, is that it's just a misunderstanding and that people see it different ways. So you really have to just like talk to each other in like an open conversation and like find out the other person's side, because you might not have been seeing it that way.
Yeah, I'd say that's, and then another thing I would mention is also like a lot of sweeping under the carpet kind of thing to say, but I mean that's like probably another big one as far as like people won't even bring it up. So
like what people do, they just don't even talk about it.
Yeah, or they try to convince themselves like it's not a big deal, but even though it's like they're actually hurt by it or whatever it is that is the issue, and they just kind of go on, and then that kind of builds up and eventually comes out in some way.
Sorry everyone, we had technical difficulties. Anyway, let's recap what we were talking about before. So basically what we were saying is people tend to handle conflicts either passive aggressively through like social media or something, or they tend to get really angry about it, like, and not go to the person in love like the right way, or they tend to just shove it under the carpet and not address it or do anything with it, and that can build up a lot of anger and resentment towards the person that you have a conflict with. So my next question for Levi is, if someone does something to you that or frustrates you, what should you do? Like,
I mean,
what should you do?
Biblically, you are supposed to go to that person in love and address what the issue is and try to resolve that. And I think that's something that we kind of usually don't go to as the first, I I guess, example that we brought up, and I think that should be more practice amongst our like friends and stuff, that it's okay to like have conflict, because most people think it's like um something that we don't like encounter a lot, but I mean it's pretty much daily. So
Yeah, we do encounter it a lot. So yeah, that's really good. Just first things, you got to go to the person in love. Obviously, you can't come in with the attack. You have to go in with love, and you also have to do it just one-on-one, not with other people. Just go to that person. You two just sit down and like just talk about it and have a good conversation about your issues and how you feel, even though it can be hard sometimes to do that, to talk about how you're feeling to everyone. But you just gotta push through it, because that's how God says to handle conflict. You have to be vulnerable, and you have to be open with what you're feeling. If something bothers you, you really should not shove it under the carpet. You gotta just go to the person and say, hey, this really bothered me when you did this. Yeah, it can just start like that. And I promise you, if you just go to them with like a loving tone, like just like, hey, like just a normal conversation, they're not going to come in on the attack to you. Well, you did this, blah, blah, blah. No, because a soft answer turns away anger, but a harsh word stirs up wrath. And so that's what I always think of whenever I'm dealing with conflict, is that how am I going to handle this? I'm going to be calm and not get angry, because that's something that I usually struggle with.
yeah, and I think another thing that just popped in my head, but another reason with people that like they don't handle conflict is because like, oh, they think like emotions are like too like, I guess, I don't know how to describe it, but you're too soft if you're like too sensitive. Or, and there are people, like there's exceptions obviously, with too sensitive of a person, like, oh, like he took my, like, I don't know, like favorite colored cup or something like that. Like obviously those things don't matter, it's a color. But like when it's something else, like something bigger, like if someone hangs out with someone and they don't invite you, like obviously you want to like know what's going on, like, and obviously you don't have to be petty about it or like make a big issue, but I mean communication is a big thing, and not to take offense to things that you like bring up to the person, like, oh, like you're being too sensitive, because honestly at the end of the day bringing up emotions is like really hard for anyone, and it shows that you're vulnerable and actually strong enough to actually bring it up to the person and not be scared because, oh, like I'm being vulnerable and this could make me, I don't know, look like I'm weak or something like that. It's actually I guess a way to show that you're not necessarily stronger, but I mean, like, because no one does that at the end of the day, I guess.
It is true. Yeah, that's really good.
And you have to have a balance, of course, obviously, with the whole thing, and mastering your emotions to not be too sensitive, but also be at least sensitive enough to have a heart and feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. So what does God say about conflict? I think we kind of touched on that a lot. How God says to go to each other in love. If your brother sins, you're to go to him one-on-one and address it, I think is what it says. I'm not really sure what that, but it doesn't have to be a sin. It can just be like anything that bothered you. Sometimes it's not a sin. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding, like I said. So he says to go in love, to have a soft answer, be the soft answer. You can always be the bigger person and listen to what the other person has to say and see it from their point of view.
Yeah, and I think that's totally right with, like, it doesn't even have to be like a sin, because like there's times where I've even noticed like it's just something that I worry about as a way to like be protective of the person, like as far as like I don't want you, whether it's like or I'll see like my dad with like my sister and stuff, where he's like I don't want you to go to that place or that party or stay out that late, like, or drive in the rain or something like that, when she's like, oh, it's just like, I mean, I see it all the time where it's like, it's just, because he could totally be like, oh, like, it's fine, like, I'll just let her do it. But it's just a way to, like, yeah, like, he's being, like, maybe too protective or something, but, like, I mean, you only get one life to live, so, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
it could be even like that, and not, it doesn't have to be like a sin. I guess it could be just something that you, like, a way to care for the person.
Yeah. So, that was a good example. Do you have any other examples of, like, a time when you had to handle conflict or something?
I mean,
Or it was hard to or something? I don't really have any examples, I'm not gonna lie. It's really hard.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would say I'd bring it back to, like, as far as the whole entire thing with, like, friends, as far as, like, not inviting them, or they don't, like.
So you haven't invited a friend?
But you're not
somewhere?
obligated to invite someone, okay? I don't sign a contract where I'm like, okay, like, I have this thing where I keep my friends kind of in their own little groups. So I'm homeschooled. So I have my little homeschool friends.
You're not homeschooled.
I was homeschooled. By heart, I'm homeschooled.
Okay.
Tell me what I am. And then I have my school friends, and then, I mean, just, I guess, work, so.
Yeah,
I don't hang out with my
that
work
makes
friends.
sense. But I'm just saying, like, if there was, like, a friend, like, in your school group that you didn't invite, that would be, like, they would rightfully be mad about that, right? Or
What do you mean rightfully? What do you mean rightfully?
Like, if you invited a bunch of people from school, and
okay, that would be wrong.
Yeah.
That would be wrong. But if I'm just hanging out with someone, like, I'm like, hey, you want to go, like, grab something? I just want to catch up with the person. And then the other person somehow finds out because they didn't turn off Snapchat locations or something like that. And they're like, hey, I see you're with Levi. Like, the little emojis are right next to each other. Like, boop. And I'm like, okay, now I got to deal with these people.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's a little petty, so I don't appreciate it.
Yeah, today on social media, it makes it a lot more, like,
I turn mine off, but the friend usually
makes
has
conflict
it
go
on.
way up.
Yeah.
And we're experiencing a lot of conflict because of social media. Most conflict just actually started because of social media, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for coming on my podcast, Levi.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you to talk about conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for watching. Join us next week because we're going to have a super cool podcast. And Davin will be back in my spot to take over as host again. But stay tuned for next week's episode. Bye.